They do, Banners. We've got a bit of a different podcast for you today. Since we've known about Brewdog, we obviously love it as a podcast, and we've been going around their breweries doing various races amongst them. And people have always told us that one of the founders is a passionate running fan, which is partly why they have so many runs from Brewdogs. Turns out, actually, Martin is not only a running fan, he's run 2:59 in the marathon relatively recently. So we thought we'd get him on. And he said, yes. So welcome on the podcast, Martin Dickie. Hooray!
Oh, thank you.
How you doing?
Really good, yeah. Monday evening, and just unwinding for the day.
What does
How far have you run today?
Oh, it's not impressive. I've been injured for about 2 years, so I was going to do a long run yesterday. Was hungover, couldn't be bothered, so was going to do it today, didn't. So I went for a 1 mile warm up, a 1.5 mile like tempo run, which is the longest tempo run I've done in 2 years, and then a mile jog. So that to me is a big session at the moment, and it was hard. But what does winding down look like to you?
A little bit like this, to be honest.
Oh, which one's Mr. President? I don't think I've had that one. That's the double IPA. Yeah, okay.
Double IPA. It was in. It's been in Tesco's for years in a bottle. We've only just recently stuck it in a tall boy can.
Does stuff like that actually change the sales? Just candy bottle. Now, are people discernible based on things like that?
I mean, the whole industry of craft beer in the UK has definitely swung from what was definitely a bottle market back in 2010 to where it is today, where it's virtually all cans now in some grocery stores for sure. And
would you say that's because it's easier for the manufacturers, or because you get more canvas for the amazing imagery, or the customers? Is it customer led?
I mean, I think it's a bit of everything. It's a great marketing piece where you've got a full place where you can put your can design. In terms of beer quality, I mean, there's I guess pluses and minuses, both. Mainly positives with a can where you get zero light penetration, which can damage beer that you get in bottle. And then in terms of filling technology, now your TPO, so your total packaged oxygen, which is the amount of oxygen in the whole can, is more or less as good as the very best bottle technology now. So I'm can all the way. It's much more sustainable. Everyone recycles cans, whereas bottles is a bit more tricky, and then it's a much lighter vessel as well. So it means you can ship a lot more in a truck, which is good for the environment too. So I'm sure that's probably the most boring start to a podcast you've ever done.
Well, what came first, your love of running or your love of beer?
Love of beer. So that's basically beer and spirits is what I've studied for my whole life and done as a hobby. Started messing about with a homebrew kit that I found in my mum and dad's loft when I was 12 years old. Whereas running was, I guess, much later in my life. I first ran a half marathon when I was at university, and I only did a half marathon because I think my dad had run one when I was younger, so I knew that he'd run one, so I was like, well, I want to run one faster than you did. So that was Jedburgh in probably 2002, 2003.
Did you beat his time?
Where I ran around the campus a few times at Heriot Watt, and thought it was probably enough to get going. But then when you're that age, you're generally pretty active playing five-a-side football and stuff. So I got a 1:47, I think, at that one, and then that was it. I didn't run for ages after that until my wife and I decided we'd run a marathon in 2011. That was I guess the start of
And that
on and off since then. To be more on recently.
Yeah, what is it for you with running? Is it something for health, or is it something for kind of pleasure, or is it something need or desire, or
I think quite a few things. I mean, initially it's a sport you can do very, I guess, quickly. All you need is a pair of trainers and a pair of shorts, and you can nip out
Mm,
for 20 minutes and have a run, or have to do a long run. Um, so that's great is from that standpoint. The other parts for me are just generally health. My job at the moment is not as manual as it was when we started brewing back in 2007,
mm,
when you were lifting a lot of bags and bottling a lot of beer. It's now pretty much all desk based now. So I noticed from as the hard work from a manual standpoint decreased, my weight started increasing, and being able to go out and run is a great way to burn a few calories. And also, some of the loves of my life are food and drink. So I think it's important to have that kind of regular regular exercise to burn some calories. And then I think more recently, in the last sort of 3 years, when I've taken up running a bit more seriously, is just getting that kind of headspace as well. So a couple of times a week I'll probably run with other people, but
mm.
the other 3 or 4 runs I tend to go myself and enjoy either listening to a podcast or just nothing, and trying to look at the fields around you or the beach or whatever, and kind of enjoy that little bit of time when you're not at work and you're not at home with the kids as well.
Because I'm quite surprised, because has there been a Brewdog running beer yet? I'm trying to think back.
Not a running specific beer, no.
Because that really surprises me, because there's quite a few of them, particularly in North America, but beers like Stride coming through, and even some people who are trying to get on that more electrolyte or lower calorie ship. Has it occurred to you as something you fancy doing, or is it because the taste is always the sacrifice?
Yeah, I mean, the key for us is just making great tasting beer, and beer itself is really good from that nutritional standpoint, where it's pretty balanced with electrolytes and things in there. The only slight negative in beer is the alcohol content. So if you have a non-alcoholic beer, then you have a nice isotonic drink. Without specifically targeting it at an audience, we'd rather
Mm.
focus it as being a great tasting beer. And if you want to drink it before running or after running or during running, then good on you.
And we've mentioned a bit about how you like to eat, and as the designer of most of the beers, I assume you have to drink quite a bit of the beers as well. When you were in your heaviest testing mode, how much would you be drinking a week just through work requirements? And what would then a heavy week outside of that look like as well?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's one quite recently that I've just been sort of tracking, I guess, to understand what that kind of baseline level of alcohol consumption is. And I mean the figures aren't awesome reading, to be honest. Where we tracked it for 3 months, and the average was about 3 drinks per day. And that was like drinks as opposed to units, so either a beer, a glass of wine, a cocktail,
Mm.
and that was in an average week. So that's for me the importance of having running in my life, where um, where especially like running first thing in the morning as well, before the kids get up. So getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock and having a coffee before you then go for a run an hour later. That's kind of like one of the most enjoyable parts of the day. And if you get up and you've got a hangover, then it becomes one of the least enjoyable parts of the day. So I think having a good running regime in your life actually really helps kind of moderate your general consumption of alcohol.
And when you
even though it's still reasonably high.
Yeah. I mean, it's as a podcast, I think a lot of our listeners are constantly trying to find that balance of pure joy of running and pure joy of drinking. And yeah, they don't go hand in hand always. And so you mentioned kind of 3 years ago, you decided to focus a little bit more on taking it a bit more seriously. What was the trigger for that?
I mean, over from 2011 through to 2018, but I'd run a few marathons over that time, maybe 6, and all of them were kind of half-assed, where whatever, I'd go on a training block, but a training block was never consistent running, and it was kind of what you could do before the race. And I guess for me, I had a few targets that I wanted to achieve, and I was just getting nowhere closer to them. Yes, I would do a fun marathon in Frankfurt or Pisa or something, and it's a great weekend. But the fact there was no real improvement was a bit frustrating. And then I thought, okay, well, it's not surprising because I've done 200 kilometers of running this year, and I'm expecting to try and run quickly. So the two things just didn't work. So in 2018, I was like, okay, well, let's try and set a target for the year of 1,500 kilometers for the year, and see if I can do that and what difference that makes. So I think that that first year, I could find the stats.
Was that structured towards a marathon, or was that just trying to get more regular running in?
Yeah, I mean that was starting to be structured towards a marathon. I mean the key things I wanted to achieve were I wanted to run a 20-minute 5K, then I wanted to run a 40-minute 10, then a 1:30 half, and then ultimately that sub 3-hour marathon. So everything was slowly becoming geared to that. The biggest challenge I had was just being able to have a consistent stretch of running to be able to start achieving some of these.
And would you say, because we've got a lot of runners who are aiming for similar things, and often people do start off with your park run target time, then gradually progress up. Which of those would you say is the harder to jump?
Sorry, the hardest jump from?
Yeah, trying to get your 25k, your 40 10k, 1:30 half, or sub 3.
I mean, for me, the hardest one was definitely the marathon. I'm a reasonably heavy runner, I would say. I'm at average sitting at about 82, 84 kilos. So being able to run a shorter distance is definitely preferable to a longer one. So definitely for me, the 20-minute 5K was the most achievable of the goals. And then just being able to start working on a more structured, more structured plan to make sure I was getting the mileage in to start achieving better things.
And would you use things like? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, my kind of average annual mileage was sitting at about 160k, 150k between sort of 2011 and 2018. Then 2018 was 1500.
That's 3Ks a week on average. There's quite a difference.
Yeah.
When you put it like that, it's quite hard to even break that. So it's probably one run every other week again.
Yeah, I mean it was basically just a block of training going into a race, and expecting something to come out of that. Where 2018 it was 1500, 2019 was 2400, and 2020 was 2600. and then just last week I broke 3,000 for this year. So
oh wow! So
the
really
numbers are
progressive.
definitely heading in the right way.
Do you think
Yeah.
now do you see yourself almost as a runner, as an identity now? And is this now a lifelong pleasure, do you think, or are you still targeted on those mileage focused year totals? Or
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'll ever see myself as a runner, to be honest. I get a lot of inspiration from chatting with actual club runners and people that can do impressive things with running. Whereas I see myself as having running as a hobby, and getting a lot of kind of pleasure from that. And I guess this year when I eventually managed to break that sort of 3 hour marathon, after I had achieved that, then it was kind of just sitting there for the next while with no real motivation or really desire to do anything in running again. So there was definitely a bit of a patch after that where I was like, well, okay, what do I do now? Which was a little bit confusing, but at the same time, it made me sort of find a nice, a great coach, and somebody that could help me sort of re-understand what I enjoy doing and trying to set some new targets.
So you'd not had a coach previously, but actually you almost got a coach for motivation purposes.
Yes, I mean there was a local ultra runner who would, when I was trying to get close to that 3 hour mark, that would kind of send out some general plans of what you should be following. And I guess I was never that good at following that. The only thing I did during the early part of 2021 was just make sure I was hitting 60k a week, and that was the turning point for me, and being able to reduce weight a little bit and increase sort of speed and endurance was just hitting that 60k mark consistently week in, week out, from January through to May, which made all the difference.
And did that sometimes mean, okay, well, were you left with massive Sunday runs then, that you were suddenly 20k in thinking, right, I've got to run a marathon this Sunday to make it up? Or were you quite structured?
It was never as it was never as bad as a marathon, but there was definitely 30k runs on Sundays trying to make it up. But I mean, at the same time, there was some great weeks as well. I think the furthest I ran one week was like 130k. So having something like that is great to show you can do it on the other side. But yeah, there's definitely some weeks where you're like, shit, we are only on. You go through a Friday on 20k. It's not a good feeling.
Was that your first sub-3 attempt?
I mean, every time I've run a marathon, I've reckoned in my head that I was going sub-3. Even though it was like 3 hours 50 or something, in my head I was running sub-3, and I think that was probably part of my problem as well is that kind of race management or race expectation where you're like, well, as long as I go out in like whatever 4:10s, then I know that I'll be pretty close to a 3 hour marathon, and then you're running 6-minute kilometers for the second half.
Yeah, always the way. So did you? Was that the first one you actually? Was that the first attempt, having trained for it? You then put it all into a plan, and the first race you actually turned up at the start line thinking, I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, I guess probably Valencia 2019. It was Valencia 2019. Was where I'd run a sub 130 half, and I trained reasonably well that year. But again, the average was probably sort of 40k a week for that year, so it wasn't huge mileage. And I thought there was an outside chance that I might be able to get close to to 3 hours, but I went through half in that race in 1:31, and then even though the race is in December, I think the race was this weekend just passed, so it was, 2 years ago. The starting temperature was 16 degrees, and by the time we were into town, it was like 24, 25, and it's a Scottish body can't handle that kind of insane temperature. So I just kind of burnt up in the back half, and I think finished in a 3:19. So I lost 20 minutes in that second half. So I guess going into May this year, I was in the best shape I've ever been. I was down at whatever 7 to 8 kilos or something, and running felt good for a change, which was nice. So I was confident when I started. I wasn't confident by 30k, and that's for sure.
And what happened at 30k then, and how did the next 12k go?
Yeah, so it was 120, 126, I think, halfway. So I knew it had a couple of minutes in the bag, but I knew it was going to be tight.
You plan to do that then? You plan to go out with, because that's quite a big step, like 4 minutes under pace.
Yeah, well, I going into that, I'd done a 1:23 half, so I knew if I was a few minutes back from that, I was probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it was a nice cold morning, so I was just kind of making the most of decent conditions. But then, getting to 30k in, and you see the splits dropping from 4:15s to 4:28s, 4:30s, and then it was really a big struggle to just keep that pace as tight as I could and try and push it out.
And so when you got your coach then, what is it for you that's kind of re-triggered that passion and just relit that flame?
I think a lot of it for me is just generally chatting about sport in general, and the beauty of the coach I'm working with now, a guy, Chris Roy. He's an ex-triathlete that used to be out in Spain, training with some of the best European triathletes. So he's I guess seen that at high elite level sport. So being able just to chat about some of his journey at the same time as trying some new things like running, monitoring your heart rate and just training in a slightly different way rather than trying to do a sort of balls out 10k 4 days a week, which apparently is not a great way to train. And just trying to do something different and take different body measurements and just hopefully see what that improvement will be over the next year.
Do you think then that you're always going to have to focus on improvements to get motivation?
I don't know. It's a tough one. Like I do enjoy just general running, but at the same time I'm quite a results focused person. So if you're not aiming for anything, I think it's quite easy just to I don't know, kind of get lost in not trying too hard to do things. Whereas if you have a goal on your wall or in your head that you're trying to achieve, being able to like break that down and see the small steps towards it is super motivating. Like that that 5:10 half marathon little tick sheet to work through.
And could you see yourself being lured into ultra races? Because that's actually, your journey is quite similar to what a lot of us have been on, and then you just reach that point of, oddly, I'm going to be asked to train even harder than I've already trained to try and get some other time. But also, if you're almost trapped in the hardest place now, because there isn't really much to improve on from 2:59, because the next significant jump, it used to be 2:45 for championship start, but because of the Nike trainers, now that's probably 2:42 or similar. So actually, the to motivate yourself to get a 257, a 255, a 252, it all seems kind of pointless compared to the sub 3, which is that big crossing of the boundary.
Yeah, I fully agree with that, which was, that was part of my lack of motivation. Is like, yeah, I've done 3, and like you say, a 252, who cares? So,
and could you be tempted up into an ultra then, because that then is something new, which the good thing is as well, as you get older, you just switch the type of race. So you're motivated by finishing or places rather than necessarily time, because times don't quite mean as much.
Yeah, but I think the thing with ultra is you're just prolonging your pain on the course for longer. I've tried I guess 3 ultras now.
Oh, you have? Which ones?
One, the first one I did was it's called the D33. So the D side, running along the D side way, which that was a long time ago. That was
yeah.
I've got that here. That was.
I mean, whoever came up with the name of that wasn't a marketing expert, I have to say.
Yeah, 2013 was the first one I did. That was the D33, and that was 52 kilometers, or almost 53 kilometers, and that was horrible. Cause it was I did the Pisa Marathon the year before, so that would have been a December race. I think the D33 was maybe March or April, so I'd done pretty much no running going into that, and because I'd done a marathon a few months before, I thought, I was fine, I can run a marathon, I can definitely run 33 miles along a river. I couldn't do that very well. And then in the last 2 years I did the what's it called, the Speyside Ultra, which was 58 kilometers, I think, but by the time I'd finished my slightly elongated route, it was like 63 kilometers. And then this year we did the race from Braemar to Aviemore over the Cairngorms and through the Larag Brew. That was a really fun race. I wasn't racing Robbie Simpson, but Robbie Simpson was there, and he smashed that course. It was like probably one of the hottest days of the year as well. And I remember just thinking halfway up or halfway along the Larag Brew that I was probably just going to like die of heat stroke, and somebody would have to airlift me off the mountain.
And he was probably already finished at that stage as well.
I think he finished in probably like 3 hours or something. And I think I was about 5 hours. So it was a long day.
And have you? Because as a club, we've done quite a few things from Brewdog. So we've done a run every Brewdog in London race. That I know you've got the odd Brewdog will have a run club from it. Has it always been an intention to try and tie running into the brand in some way, or has it been more based off just the individuals who worked in those places?
I don't even think it's individuals that work in the places. A lot of it's just either some of our equity punks or people in their local pubs, or maybe some of the team that work in the pubs as well, and people that just love running. And it's a great start point. It's an even better finish point to finish in a pub after a run, a fun run. So yeah, I mean, there's not an official Brewdog run, and it's a guy up in Aberdeenshire sort of organised the first sort of Brewdog Run, which was from our bar in Aberdeen to our brewery, which is about 33 kilometres. And Dave Scott, who organised that several years ago, I think he did it himself the first year just to see how kind of far it was, probably with a bag full of beer. And then since then, it happens twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. And I guess pre-COVID times, it was a beer at the start in the pub in Aberdeen, and then sort of 2 or 3 points along the way where you can get water or a beer or a
Mm.
beer. And it's just a great day out and a great bunch of people just having fun, having a reasonably leisurely run and enjoying some chatting and a good beer and stuff at the end of the race as well. So they're great, but they're not organised by Brewdog as such. They're just organised by people that kind of want to have a place to start and stop their runs. So it's great.
And could you see Brewdog?
The one I'm.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I think maybe answering your question. The one I really want to organise is where we're planting our forest up in beside Abbeymoor. It's from the area there. It's just under 10,000 acres, and it's about 13 kilometres from the roadside into the far side of the hill. So you'd be 26, maybe 30 kilometres in and out in a hill race. So I think that would be an awesome one to have an official Brewdog running event on.
So what's that like? Is that the land then that's just been used to plant trees if you buy lost lager? Is that right, or is I know there's a plant a tree.
Yes, it's where we're planting our lost forest. So basically, it's 10,000 acres of what was a shooting estate. So it's kind of managed gorse land for the production of grouse and pheasants, and so at the tops of the hills, all the peatland has been drained and is actively eroding, which is releasing a lot of CO2 into the atmosphere. So we're blocking up all the drainage that's gone on for years, and that sort of starts to re-wet the peatland and stops it eroding anymore. And eventually we'll start to allow it to rebuild. And also, planting a few million trees up there as well, which helps to sort of offset our emissions.
And when did that all begin as
our journey?
Yeah, when did that all begin as a concept?
Yeah, well, it was August 2020 when as a business we decided that it wasn't good enough just to carry on the way we were, and we've always been, I guess, reasonably environmentally focused as a business, especially from the production side. We've invested heavily in making sure our equipment's as efficient as possible, and it's a very energy intensive business, the beer industry with a lot of electrical energy, gas requirement, and water usage, and we've been doing our best from 2012 when we moved to a new facility, and making sure every year as we grew we were using less energy per can we're making, less water, and that's fine, but when you see the climate emergency being doing okay isn't really good enough, so we decided to own our carbon footprint and put measures in place to make sure that we were on target to drastically reduce our emissions, and at the same time as reducing our emissions, we would offset or double offset every kilo of CO2 that we as a business. So as of August 2020, we've double offset every kilo of CO2 that we've emitted.
And in terms of
that happens at the moment.
And how you've achieved that has that been through making big changes and changes in the philosophy of brewing, or has it been more through the offsetting and buying the peat land and putting the trees in?
Yes, I mean the offsetting is the final stage. The more, or arguably more important, is not releasing the CO2 in the first place, which comes back to our production and running our bars in general efficient as possible. But with our brewing process, we're just in the back end stages of a huge project on site, which is I guess taking all our waste streams, which is our wastewaters. So it's like, bits of beer, bits of yeast, bits of hop, which at the moment is spread to land as because it's beneficial to the soil. But what we're doing now is recovering all that into an anaerobic digester. The anaerobic digester then takes the wastewater and then it turns it into biogas, and then the other outputs are the kind of cleaner wastewater. That then goes through a complete wastewater system, so you end up with two outputs from there, which are a digestate, which goes to local farmers as a concentrated fertilizer, so it helps them reduce their fertilizer inputs into the land, and we get clean water. And the clean water will then either go back into the brewery, and the stuff we don't use in the brewery will go to the local watercourse. And then from your biogas side, where that comes off from the anaerobic digester, that then is split into biomethane and CO2. So the CO2 will capture and clean up and concentrate, and then we reuse that in our production for giving the beer its fizz. And the biomethane we use that to power our boilers at our brewery, and we'll also use it in our vehicle fuel as well. So it'll offset.
That's a lot going on.
Yeah. So it's a really cool project, but like I guess the beauty of it is that a year, or I guess what we currently do now is going to be vastly different what we do in 6 months' time once this thing's working. So at the moment that wastewater spread to land, whereas in 6 months' time it'll give us all the gas that we need to power the brewery. It'll give us the majority of our gas that we need to power our vehicle fleet. It'll give us the majority of our CO2 that we'll use back in the production, and it'll give us about 30% of our water back into our process as well. So, I mean, that's the important.
Could you see a day when carbon capture is basically farms of people heavily drinking just to try and get the carbon dioxide from the air into beer so they can then put it in their bodies? Like, could that be the ultimate solution to the climate crisis?
I think you might be onto something.
So we get a lot of people on the podcast who are quite interested in kind of the growth of companies and challenges of entrepreneurs and things. Like, where would you say over the journey that you guys have made, what have been like the key points that have made massive differences that you think could have made or broken the company kind of from the beginning till now?
Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest piece of advice is probably not to listen to advice from other people. So many times along our journey with Brewdog, if we just listened to what other people have said, we wouldn't have done the things that we've done in the beer industry, which has really allowed us to find our own space initially and really allow the whole category to grow. When we first asked someone if a 6% American style IPA is a good thing for the northeast of Scotland, they categorically said, well, what you want to be brewing is a 4.5% golden ale, because that's what the cask ale drinkers of Aberdeenshire are used to. As opposed to, saying, well, I'm sure the cask ale drinkers drink that, but, do they have any other options? And it's not what we want to drink ourselves. So I think definitely having that undying belief in, I guess, in what you're doing. If you are sure that it's probably a good idea, then it probably is a good idea, and not let people throw you off with their great ideas that they won't do themselves.
And was there one beer then that you and James both almost held up on high as being the one you were like, yeah, this is, if we could make a Scottish version of this?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's I guess a couple of beers that were pivotal in getting us into the beer journey. And you know, for me personally, it was Sierra Nevada Pale Ale,
Oh yeah, okay.
and Cantillon Roasted Gambrinus, which is a sour beer from Brussels.
I don't
But
know that one. Okay.
so it's a raspberry sour from Brussels. But just in terms of growing up in Scotland, and the beers that were available when I was growing up would have been McEwan's Export or Tennant's Lager. To taste something like a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, which is what 6%, and brewed with mainly Cascade, but American hops, and it tastes of grapefruit, it tastes of pine, and it's got a nice sort of caramel sweetness to it. That was something I'd never experienced before. And then you've got the other end where it's like, put this beer in your mouth from Brussels, and you're like, holy shit, what is this? It's like putting an opal fruit in your mouth, and your mouth sort of, your cheeks are watering. It's like incredible. I didn't know beer could be like that, but I think beer should be like this. Why is the beer that we drink not like that?
What was your first of each of those? What was that? Where was that experience? And can you remember actually what had happened?
I mean, the first Sierra Nevada was from Edinburgh. It was just from a beer shop in Edinburgh, and it would have been first year university. So
does that beer stop still exist? That beer shop?
I don't think so. No.
That's a shame. That'd be great if you could go back in there and complete the circle.
Yeah, and then for the roasted Gambrinus I was staying in Leek in Staffordshire when I was working at a brewery down in Thornbridge Hall Brewery in just outside Bakewell, or in Bakewell now. I think their new one is. And there was a really Leek's a fairly industrial sort of mill town, and there was a tiny little Belgian style beer cafe there. I don't know if it's still there or not, called Den Engel, which I don't know, I think it means the angel or something, or the whatever, it doesn't matter. And it was incredible being able to finish your shift on a Friday and go down to this kind of tiny little beer bar. It literally was, like a little European style cafe in this industrial town, which had every other sort of typical English boozer up and down from it. But there was this beautiful little Belgian bar that had incredible beer and draft. It also had a great bottled beer selection, and that was the first place that I tried
Was there Belgian owners, you think, or was that just an oddity?
I don't think they were Belgian owners. I think they were just people who had travelled to Belgium and seen the Belgian beer scene. I think actually they were keen cyclists, so they used to go on cycling tours in Belgium. That's what it was. Because I remember, I think there was like a bike in the wall or something in the place. And yeah, they'd obviously fallen in love with Belgian beer cafes, and I guess they would have driven their car over once or twice a year, filled it up with everything they could get, and then come back. Because I'm pretty sure there wouldn't have been many distributors that would have had the breadth of beer that they had. It was an absolutely incredible bar. I don't know if it still exists, but it was beautiful.
And how have you deviated from the flavours, you think? Were you, because did at first things like punk, did you have that in mind, and you were trying to figure out how they did it, and then you settled on something, or did you start with a different flavour in mind?
Yeah, so with punk, it wasn't about trying to match a beer specifically. It was just taking inspiration from those incredible American beers. But I mean, it wasn't just Sierra Nevada. It was also by the time we started the brewery, it would have been Stone IPA. It would have been Alesmith IPA. What else was there at that time? You know, some of the Brooklyn beers, their East India IPA. So some really cracking hoppy bitter beers, which was what we were trying to recreate. I guess it wasn't specifically one; it was just a sort of West Coast style IPA that we wanted to get, and I guess we used majority of American hops, but we also blended in a few hops from New Zealand as well, which I guess took the flavour profile from being maybe quite aggressive and citrus and pine, and then it added a sort of slightly softer edge on the front with some kind of stone fruit that you would get from some of the beautiful New Zealand hops that we were able to get at that time.
And then with the evolution to opening up bars, which, I mean, that seems like a very risky move, and something that I'd imagine none of the brewers would ever recommend, because it's almost like people saying it's the death of pubs for the last 15 years, ever since, I can't even remember what the first thing was that they bought, ever since Wetherspoons appeared. Like what was the decision making behind that?
Yeah, so I mean what we really wanted was somewhere that we could showcase, you know, what our beer was all about. And again in Leek there was a tiny bar. I can't remember if it was the Leek Brewery or the Staffordshire Brewery. One of the two breweries had a little tap room in Leek, and you know, it was literally 2 rooms with 5 tables in a tiny little place. But it was just a kind of cool concept. I thought of, actually, you know, they control that environment. They can sell whatever of their beers that they want, and it gives their, I guess, or allows them to build a customer base that are able to see all the different beers that they make. Big problem we had was we were trying to sell, you know, Punk IPA or Hardcore, which is our double IPA at that time, or, you know, Paradox, which was a 12% big stout aged in a whiskey barrel. We were trying to sell these into Aberdeen, and it was hard. You know, 2007, 2008, 2009 weren't great times for Brewdog availability in Aberdeen. I mean, definitely there was a handful of great customers who very early on were, you know, bending over backwards to help out a local new brewery, and you know, to have a couple of our beers on tap or a case of bottles in the fridge. But we just thought, you know, we make so many great beers, you know, wouldn't it be incredible just to have our own little space? So, you know, James he lived in Aberdeen at that point, I think, and he had a little flat in Aberdeen. And just round from him, there was a bar that had been shut for about 3 years, I think. And, you know, the whole place was dilapidated, and I think we were able to get it pretty cheaply, and just ripped everything out, and you could see it was like probably 4 different layers of plasterboard. Instead of redecorating, they just fired down another sheet of plasterboard and painted on that. So we ripped all that right back to the skeleton of a building, because it's a really old building in Aberdeen. There was some incredible, beautiful old brickwork in behind, and some really cool little granite blocks and stuff as well. So we ended up with a really interesting and fun building that we were able to turn into our first beer bar. And there it had been 20 beers on tap, I guess, at the start. And it was a totally different concept for Aberdeen, and a great place for people to come and hang out and taste their beers. It was a very different way of a very different beer experience from what people were used to.
And with them, because I'm trying to think, when I first became aware of Brewdog, it probably wasn't until 2014 even. And was that typical? Am I typical, would you say, of most people from outside of Scotland? That growth to what would you say was the first moment when you thought this could be massive?
I mean, I think we're still chasing that dream. To be honest, I mean, our whole ambition when we started the brewery was to make other people as passionate about great beer as we are, and just allow them to have that ability to enjoy beer and have great experiences and have a more relaxed experience, I think, with alcohol. Whereas traditionally in the UK it tends to be one that's kind of fairly hard and fast with alcohol. So yeah, I mean, I think we're still, or maybe wrongly or rightly, we still feel we're definitely on that journey, and yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that gets us out of bed in the morning, is that although we've been in our own little bubble for 14 years, we're still a long way from I guess completing our mission that we set out to do.
And you've been known for some pretty good stunts and some quite clever PR. Going into America though, you're going into the place where they've got more pails than anyone else. It's their backyard where they're the real creators of this type of beer. Like, how have you gone into there, and how do you feel? How is it going for Brewdog, and how do you rate your chances of becoming a dominant player over there?
I mean, for us, the majority of our inspiration as a business came from the American beer scene. So I would say it's a privilege for us to be able to go into the American market and see our beer in store and be able to brew our beer alongside basically our heroes in the market. But I think our brand does resonate pretty well in the States. It's been a tough time in the American beer market for a few years now, where there's been a general decline in craft beer volume. At the same time, we built our brewery in Columbus, Ohio, and it's doing really well, and great growth year on year. At the same time as being able to open a few bars there as well. So I mean, just last week we opened a bar in Cleveland, and it's incredible when you open a bar in the States and it's a market that's had craft beer for a long time. But before the bar opens, you see people queuing around the block to come into your bar, and it's great to see that, to be honest.
Now you're the master brewer. You do loads of collaborations, and you're known for doing lots of different flavors. What have been the shockers that haven't made it out?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely been a few over the years. I mean, I think some of the most interesting beers we made were when we filmed our TV show out in the States. So between 2013 and 15, we filmed.
I don't know about that. What's the TV show?
Yes, that was. You don't know about it. It was a massive hit. I can't believe you've never heard of it.
Was it called Brewdog TV or?
It was called Brewdogs. So it was on like an American network. In its first season, it was the highest rated program on the network. That massive network called Esquire that you've probably never heard of either. But yeah, I mean, for 3 seasons, so like 30 hours of TV. James and Martin, these two guys that love beer from Scotland, travelled. We went to a different city every week in
It's
the
kind of like
States,
the hairy brewers.
like that. Except we didn't have motorbikes. I don't think they would have trusted us in motorbikes. So yeah, we'd go out to a different city every week or different state every week and find our I guess heroes or our favourite brewers in that state and we'd do a collaborative beer with them. And it's a bit of a kind of travel log thing as well, where you'd where's the best places to eat in the city, where's the best places to drink, what's the cool things to do, and how do we get a concept that we can make into a beer, interesting beer, and let people try that. So I think the worst one we did was with Sam Adams in the Boston Lager guy. So the founder of that's an incredible guy called Jim Cook, who is probably a craft beer billionaire. It's an incredible story actually. So they're known for their beer, but I think they make more alcoholic iced tea and hard seltzer. They're massive in hard seltzer than they do their beer, and cider as well. Make a lot of cider. It's an incredible business and an incredible guy.
Yeah.
So with him, who's basically like one of the most famous people in beer, we managed to get him to make a beer with us where it was I think it was a sour Scotch ale with smoked clams and smoked clams and lobster, and the souring of the beer came from our own bodies. So we made a mash, the malted barley and water, warm water, and then James and myself and him basically got into this swimming pool. I think James was probably naked. I think Jim Cook had
Of course he was.
a jean waistcoat. Some budgie smugglers, and he was in there as well. So that was kind of fun filming that, and he was a great sport doing it, and a massive idol of ours. But that beer, which was a sour Scotch ale with smoked clam and lobster, was one of the worst things we've ever tasted.
I mean, he could have predicted.
And then you're doing it. But you're doing the thing, and because it's the film crew at the end, and you're like giving people a sample to taste, and you're like, oh, what do you think? And they're like, oh yeah, it's they're all Americans, so they're super enthusiastic. It's different, man. It's like
how did that come about, that show? Because that just seems like the weirdest thing to do as a 10-year two founders, 10 years of a business, to then go off for 2 months to America and record a TV show.
Yeah, it was a bit. Well, I mean, for us, it was all about how do we publicize our business as best we can, as cheaply as we can. So that was paid for by another TV network, and the hard part was it took James and myself out from the business for best part of 2.5 months every year for 3 years. But what it did do was it started to allow people in the States to have heard of Brewdog, and even though we only distributed a little bit at that time in the West Coast, a lot of people had heard of the name Brewdog even back then, 2013 to 2015. So when we did actually move to have a brewery in the States in 2017, people had already heard somewhere in their head the name Brewdog rang a bell, which was great. It really gave us a little bit of a helping hand getting into that market.
Was there an element of you just thought, fuck it, I want to do it, it'll be fun?
I mean, it was a lot of fun filming that. I guess the good thing about not being Hollywood trained and coming from Scotland was like the first time we were on like a proper set, there was like 35 people involved in the filming process, and you're literally standing there saying, well, okay, what are we doing? And it's like, well, there's not really a script. You're just going to have to talk, and we'll kind of work this kind of loose idea into a TV show. I was like, cool. Let's start with a couple of beers and see how we get on. So you literally spent 2.5 months having a beer pretty steadily from breakfast till bedtime.
Wow, yeah, that must have been brutal. And then with I bet. Is that available for download still? Do you know anywhere?
Some of it's on our own website, but because we don't own the rights to it, it's pretty difficult. I'm sure if you can.
Brewdog. I'm just looking on some torrents just to see.
Yeah.
And COVID, with you've opened so many bars, and COVID then hits. Like, part of that, I imagine, once you got past the shop, would have been good for you, because a lot of people were buying online, and you're perfectly placed to do that because you've got such an array of beers and you can wholesale. But like, what did that do for the business, and what did that do, I guess, to you personally, with the stress of that?
Yeah, it was it's a hard time for everyone in the world, but that kind of first realization when there was talks about lockdown and no one really knew what that meant. For us, pretty quickly it meant closing 100 bars and having zero income from that side of our business, which is a sizable chunk of our business's income. So having that turned off straight away, but not just turned off, but it's like actively bleeding a lot of cash for a long period of time meant that we really had to very quickly understand how we could just survive as a business. And that was, luckily for us, we have great relationships in the grocers, and we sell a good amount of beer through the grocers, and we were also able to amp up what we did in our online offering as well, as you talked about. And so between I guess people still buying beer, just buying it through grocery and online meant that we were able to survive as a business. But it's been a horrible looking couple of years, and hopefully, or we thought until a week ago that we were beginning to get back on track, and now there's new variants and possible new restrictions at some point, maybe after Christmas, and again everyone's going to have to assess what that means. But I think it's hard the world over. At the end of the day, you've always got to think, we just make beer. It's not a kind of life or death situation for us. We're not frontline workers. We're not working in hospitals. So there's a lot of people with things a lot harder to deal with than us. So I guess from that standpoint, we consider ourselves pretty lucky, to be honest.
And when we first mentioned about doing the podcast, Brewdog were in the headlines for the wrong reasons, and there was some kickback from staff about some treatment, but how does that fit with what's happened within Brewdog since then, and how do you communicate what happened, and how do you see that fitting within who you want to be as a person, and you want Brewdog to be as an organisation?
Yeah, so that was I guess completely out of the blue for us, and really hard for the business to take with the situation we found ourselves in. And as a business, we set forward a sort of 10-step plan off the back of that, and had an internal review from an independent team who have spent the last 6 months to talk and really been able to understand everything from in a lot of detail, and hopefully very soon they'll come back with the results of what they're found, and that'll allow us as a business to understand what we need to do to get better. Hopefully, in a way that we can do that in a neat, step-by-step way to make sure that we're looking after employees as best we can. We've got over 2,000 employees as a business worldwide now, and just making sure that me as a founder, as a director of the business, that I'm making sure I'm doing everything I should be to make sure we look after our team. We always prided ourselves on trying to be an excellent employer, and somewhere along the line that hasn't always been the case. So we've spent a lot of time and yes, got a great team of people looking hard into that to make sure we improve for sure.
And do you think, because we normally put out a request for questions before for the episodes, and I didn't do that this time just because I was partly worried that there is as soon as criticism comes up, everyone backs the little person and backs the staff really. And do you think that's changed your relationship with a lot of the public, or do you feel the public have responded as well?
I mean, for us, it's all about understanding people's experience and not being on the offensive. It's about understanding, listening, and then trying to realise what the business has done, business or individuals have done wrong in the past, and understanding how we improve going forward. I guess we are where we are with social media, and it works both ways. Us as a business have been able to utilise social media in a very positive light going forward. In the last months, it hasn't been so positive for us, so it's something we have to deal with.
Now, something you guys have done really well, we mentioned earlier slightly, is great PR. And there's always been a touch of tongue-in-cheek in some of the things you've done. And one of the unfortunate things now is, because of this unfortunate situation, there's probably more pressure on you to be far more accurate in the claims you make that are almost audacious claims for PR's sake. Do you think it's taken the edge off what you can come out saying now? Because a lot of the claims have just been wonderfully fun. And do you think you're going to be more cautious in how you approach PR? Or are you going to be back to that Brewdog audacious, just kicking down doors, making bold statements?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general we've changed over the course of the 14 years we've been in business. When we were very early on, we had to shout very loud to be heard, and we did a lot of whatever fun things or silly things, whatever, to get people to be discussing beer. Whether that was making the strongest beer in the world, or driving a tank through Camden High Street. For us, it was all about how can we get people to talk about beer, and then when you have that general discussion about beer, it allows us to start putting taste, flavour, excitement at the forefront of people's minds when they think about beer. So I mean, that's always what we've intended to do when we've done fun things, collaborations, whatever in the past. And and I think going forward it'll always be the same. I think as a business we've probably grown up a little bit. We're not 10 people working out of a shed in Fraserburgh anymore. We're a global business with 2,000 employees. By the end of next year, over 3,000 employees. So we need to, I guess, act in a slightly more adult manner, but at the same time, it is just beer at the end of the day, and having beer is a great thing, I think, for society in general. It's a great social lubricant. It's a great way for people to have fantastic interactions. And I think off the back of where the world's been with COVID and restrictions, and I think what a lot of people have been missing in their life is just that general social interaction. And a lot of people are out the back of being locked down for months at a time in a slightly different frame of mind, whether you've got anxiety or just sort of a different approach to how you had before. I think beer and drinking beer and having fun sociable events is a great way to try and sort of rebuild what community used to be.
And in terms of your personal journey, because you've come up with a huge number of different styles of beers now, and there is an element of you've got a lot of them right, all the structures in place for every kind of beer that you want from Brewdog already. Like, are you going to get bored? Like, are there many things left that you want to create that are still out there?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is. We just a few weeks ago released our collaboration with La Trappe. So it's a Trappist brewery based in Holland, and that's something we've talked about doing that since 2010. One of our brewing ambitions was to make a beer with a Trappist brewery, and that's taken us 11 years to be able to fulfill that dream. So that the start of that process was actually mid 2019, where some of the people involved came over from Holland. We had them in Scotland for a week. We did a few trial brews with them. We visited a distillery. Everything was in place. That James and myself were going to go across to Holland to the monastery.
Were they actually monks, out of interest? They were the actual monks.
So we were going to be going to the monastery in Holland to brew the beer with the monks. But it happened just at the time. I think we were meant to fly out in April 2020, and obviously we went into lockdown in March. So that never happened, and then it just kept on rolling forward. Okay, well, it looks like things are going to get better. We'll get out, and eventually they just brewed the beer. So we weren't actually able to get out to brew with them. But we were able to brew, with some of their team in Scotland anyway. We did some of the trial brews before the one they did in Holland. So we kind of got our dream ticked off in that we brewed a beer with a Trappist brewery. Unfortunately, we didn't get to brew the beer in the monastery.
And I've got a company myself. Caffeine Bullet. We do chocolate orange flavors. Have you ever thought about a caffeine beer or a chocolate orange stout?
Caffeine beer, yes. Although you're not allowed to sell beer with caffeine in it. I think there's been a few
right?
Previously, and they got taken off the market because I don't know, it's just mixing that, I guess, stimulant and depressive at the same time is not great. Chocolate orange beer, we haven't done a chocolate orange beer, but we do a thing every year called Collab Fest where each of our bars get to brew a beer with their local brewery, and we've had a chocolate and mint beer brewed, which won a few years back. So that not chocolate orange, but it was chocolate mint, and it was awesome, and it won the Lab Fest.
And last question from me. So I'm a bit annoyed actually, because I've been brought up with the old way of drinking quickly. I can't handle the strength of half your beers, and Dead Pony was my salvation. So that is what I buy in Tesco's and Sainsbury's. And now I can't find it in Tesco's and Sainsbury's because it's all Hazy Jane and Punk. So do you know if it's going to be coming back to?
I mean, we still brew it. It's still being packaged. So you need to find out where it's been sold.
Yeah, it's all the Tesco's and Sainsbury's locals in London that tends to be where I put my stuff up on. So.
Okay. You have to start buying your beer at www.brewdog.com.
I mean, might as well plug it. Amazing. And what else can we expect from Brewdog in the future? Like what things do you think will surprise us?
Not sure what will surprise you, but I guess if you're going to be hanging out in Las Vegas the back end of next year, we'll have a bar open there, which should be pretty awesome. Our distillery, we're just moving our distillery at the moment into another building, and that'll allow us to have 24/7 production of whiskey, as well as the gin, rum and vodka that we're making too. So that's something to look forward to going forward as well. And the Brewdog Run, I need to organise that actually. You'll have to come to the inaugural Brewdog hill race. What do you do hill racing, or what's your
all running? Yeah, I do. I love it all, but anything with beer. And if you want to try and copy something, the Beer Lovers Marathon or the Great British Beerathon, you've got the beers already, and then it's just finding the location and adding the run between them. But yeah, any run like that, let us know, and we'll put it out on the podcast and get people up there, because most people are quite heavy Brewdog drinkers on the podcast. So yeah, I'm sure they'd love to come.
Okay, we'll try and get that organised for next year.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Good luck with your running, and in terms of your plans for your future of running, do you have anything you're targeting now, or anything that really appeals in the future?
I want to run ideally the Berlin Marathon, but I'll run something later on next year. I don't have a target. Maybe you should set a target just now.
Well, if you fancy something a bit different to a marathon, I think the Comrades Ultra Marathon is the greatest race on earth. It's like a double marathon, but it's South Africa. It's beautiful time of year to be there. It's a quiet time, and there's just so much history to it. It's absolutely wonderful, and you can do it where it's nearly all downhill or nearly all uphill, depending on which year. So I'd say if you want something longer, that's a good one. In terms of marathons, I mean, the Myanmar Marathon, the Bagan Marathon is incredible if you want something that's scenic. I don't know if it still happens, but I'm not sure how readily available that will be, given what's happening in Myanmar at the moment. Yeah.
And in terms of what time I should go for, so I've scraped under 3. I'm not getting any younger. What should be the ultimate target?
Well, given that I'd say go for a 5K time that is more aggressive, because actually that's something that you can get into a lot faster and try for a lot longer. And I think trying to get your passion back, going for shorter distances is always good, because there's so many more things you can do, and you can attempt it more often. So I'd say sub 19 would be pretty good. That's quite a big jump, but if you can do, in fact, you could probably do that already. If you can do sub 3, you can do sub 19.
Yeah, I think it's 18 was my best.
Or even sub 18 because trying to do that without increasing your mileage massively would be hard. You're even going to have to really focus on pace sessions, or start doing weight training as well, an additional workout. But if you were to do something like that, you'd actually learn so much along the process. So sub 18 would be pretty tidy.
Yeah, agreed.
Brilliant. Well, let me know when it's done, or if you need a pacer, we'll send some people out.
Yeah. Cool.
And any messages you'd want to throw out to the podcast, or any offers or anything like that? Here's your chance to have a bit more of an advert.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the key one is just support your local Brewdog bar. It's been a pretty tough time for the last period, and I guess it's not just your Brewdog bar. Support any local bar in general. It's an area of industry that's been severely hit with all the curbs. So yeah, anytime you're walking past your local bar and you've got an extra 20 minutes, go in and have a beer and be nice to the staff there who have not had a great time recently.
And if any listeners have got a way to get that TV series, download it, send me a link, and I'll distribute it subtly, legally through the podcast, through the group.
30 hours, never get back.
Yeah, we'll. I'll send you the best of highlights or something. But thanks so much for coming on, and good luck with the Sub 18 project.
Cool, thank you.
So there you go, do-ballers. Probably didn't know that one was coming. Quite unexpected. And actually, I wasn't sure if Martin was going to turn up because we organised this quite some time ago. And then there'd been one email since to his EA who no longer works there. So I was there logging on, fully expecting no one to appear. And Martin was already there. So what a legend. Yeah, really, really interesting. Sorry Jody couldn't be on. He's got COVID at the moment, and he's actually got it pretty bad. He's really been struggling with it, sadly. So he'll be back on from next week, I hope. But I thought that was really interesting, and took us a bit of time to get warmed up. I think just because we don't know each other, and hopefully that's a bit of enlightenment into the Brewdog story, as much as an enlightenment into that process that a lot of people have to get to their first sub 3 marathon. Though it doesn't sound like it was that hard for him, to be fair. Not too many attempts to get there, so clearly a talented runner without necessarily appreciating that. But what do you think, D-Badders? Let us know, and any ideas you want me to pass on to Martin of events that you think they should do, or beers that you think they should do. Try to get the caffeine bullet, chocolate orange one in there. Didn't know you couldn't do caffeine beers. That is a shame. But yeah, probably makes a lot of sense. And if there's any guests you'd like us to interview in the future, do let me know. Either message me directly, email david@badboyrunning.com, or if you message the Instagram, that gets through to me. And if you can review and subscribe, that really helps raise our profile, which helps us get people like Martin on in the future. So thanks for listening, guys. Get in the group if you want to hear more, and we'll be back next time.